we're being joined now by John Ondrasik, singer and songwriter for Five for Fighting, who was last night at Flagstock alongside the UNC frat bros who defended the American flag earlier this year. John, great to have you on the show, sir. Thank you.
Hey, Vince, nice to talk to you.
It was cool to, first of all, just see the frat bros do that earlier this year. Somebody finally standing up for the American flag. I just want people to hear that audio again. This is back in May as some ghouls on campus were trying to lift a Palestinian flag in place of the American flag, and these guys stopped them. Yeah, so they stood there. They protected the American flag, John. What did you think when you saw those images?
Well, first of all, it was something that you hadn't seen on a college campus in 7 months, people actually standing up to the mob. And certainly I think we all felt grateful to those boys. They didn't wake up that morning trying to do that. It was a spontaneous response and seeing people doing something that they felt was wrong. And they were one of the few people who stood up to the mob on our college campuses. And so yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that speaks to the state of the country is that act is so rare and far and few between. You know, we live in an age where common acts of patriotism now seem international news stories. So even though it was great to perform and meet the kids and talk to them, you know, the fact that we were even there, I think, says something about the state of the times.
It does. It really does. And I saw even leading up to last night's concert that there were all sorts of news outlets, to include the New York Times, that were going out of their way to attack this or to try and make it the source of some sort of infighting, or that students on campus didn't even want this to happen, and yet it did happen. What was it like last night, John?
Well, you know, I'll tell you one thing. At our rally, there were no masks. Nobody was hiding their face.
Yeah.
I guess when you sing and stand up for human rights and you condemn Hamas, you don't need to hide your face. And you know, personally, for me, it was a very emotional night. As someone who's been working closely with Rachel Goldberg, we're all still very gutted by the murder of Hirsch. So for me, it was tough to even go, but it was also cathartic because I was able to thank in person these young men and their families who did the right thing, and talk about it and talk about what's going on our college campuses. So I especially was moved to speak with many of the Jewish kids. There were two young girls, IDF soldiers, who just come back to America and are going to U.S. college campuses that were there. And you know, these girls who'd been fighting a war are in some way scared to go to a college campus. You know, so that's, you know, when you meet people like that and you give them a hug and you take a picture and they understand that there are people fighting for them, you know, a lot of this stuff certainly makes it worthwhile.
Why do I get the feeling, and you kind of already addressed this to some extent, John, but I get the feeling that the idea of like flying a Palestinian flag on campus, on a lot of these college campuses, has more support than defending the American flag. It is, as you pointed out, a rare impulse that was that these UNC students demonstrated. But how did we get to this place?
Well, you know, I haven't seen in the New York Times, you know, attacking a concert that calls for intifada or rivers to the sea that so many of our young artists seem to spout daily. And look, our concert had to be at an undisclosed location for the safety of the students. The kids didn't know where it is. They got on buses and they were brought to an undisclosed location because they rescued the American flag. We have to protect their safety. So it just shows you how broken our culture is. And I think it's important. And you know, the example of those boys for the rest of us is stand up and do the right thing. Because if it wasn't an anomaly, if everybody was doing this, if every artist and singer-songwriter was saying free the hostages, I don't think we'd be in such a dark place. Look, you know, courage is contagious, but so is cowardice. So I think those boys giving that example to all of us is something we should take to heart, whether you're a singer, whether it's a PTA meeting, sitting across the table from somebody at dinner. You know, America's fighting for the soul of herself right now. And I think there's a lot of people think, well, the silent majority gets it. Well, if you're silent too long, the silent majority becomes a silent minority, and I fear we're on that track.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Among the performers last night, there was our guest, John Ondrasik, who you know is Five for Fighting, also Big and Rich, Lee Greenwood, Aaron Lewis. I saw that the money that was raised to throw this party for people who stood up for the American flag, a little over $500,000. Fox News reports that some 80,000 of that money was spent on what you just referenced, John, security. They needed almost a fifth of the money that was raised just to protect the students who would attend the concert. That's crazy.
That's the times we live in, right? I mean, yeah, there were almost as many police as students. I mean, it's so sad that we have to, protect our kids for caring about America and speaking the anti-narrative that maybe America is not the most evil place in the world.
Yeah.
But, luckily we had the funds to do that. Many concerts, people asked me to go to Columbia. They asked me to go to UCLA to speak all the time or perform, and I'm happy to do it. It always comes down to who's going to pay for the security. But you don't need security when, certain terrorists come and speak at your college. But if you want to sing for America and stand with the Jewish students and the same students,
yes,
you need $100,000 and you need 40 cops. So again, it just goes to where we are. But you know what? We're standing up against that. We're seeing some movement. I think the culture gets it. We're seeing some college presidents resign and be replaced. So I think, we can be depressed, but we have to go on offense. And when I say offense, I don't mean with violence or with intimidation. It's with compassion. It's with fortitude. And we have to save the kids who've been indoctrinated on our campuses. They think they're doing the right thing. They're in a cult. We need to save them. We can't abandon them either.
One of the reasons that we're speaking with you is because you made a name for yourself in music, and you're able to use what you've achieved with your career to be able to speak up on behalf of this issue, which I'm grateful for. But it strikes me that it's an unusual thing for somebody to have achieved your level of success, the success of some of the other guys on that stage, and then turn around and stand up for America these days. Is it just a part of the industry that you need to keep your head down usually on issues like this? I mean, why are so few artists speaking up and joining in on something like what you did last night?
Vince, it's a historical disgrace. I understand if some artists don't want to get on stage with some conservative country artist and have that image. I get it. But let's look what's happened since October 7th. I was honored to play the concert for New York, where every iconic artist in the world stood at Madison Square Garden, condemned terrorism, stood with America. Here we are, after October 7th, not one of those artists have said simple moral truths like free the hostages, Hamas is evil. Many of them are Jewish artists. We're paralyzed. We're morally paralyzed. I don't have good answers for you. I talked to some of the artists, reps, they say, well, we're afraid our concerts get protested. We're afraid our families are at risk. And I go, you're right. But do you understand those are the same arguments people used in 1938? So, again, we are in a tipping point. And all I can do is do what I do and hopefully inspire others and, again, support these kids like the kids in North Carolina that are showing us how to do it.
John, I know this is an issue that's near and dear to your heart. You're standing up for America and telling the truth about the events of October 7th in particular. In the New York Times attack on all of this, they made it seem like a pejorative that some of the musicians who performed last night were closely aligned with Mr. Trump. That's the way the New York Times described all of this. They decided to lump President Trump in. I'm not sure about your politics, but why shouldn't it be a good thing that President Trump has an association? It says something good about him that he's associated with people who are standing up for what's right here.
Well, certainly some of the artists there support Donald Trump. John Rich supports Donald Trump. But to me, this is not about politics.
Right.
This is about moral issues. I've been working with some of the leftists on Israel and on fighting for Israel against Hamas. Deborah Messing and Mark Levin both shared my video about Israel. Okay, it's not about politics. It's about right versus wrong. And of course, the New York Times wants to try to stain it because it counters their narrative. When people stand up for human rights and women's rights and gay rights, like we did last night, if you go to Hamas and you're queers for Palestine, you're murdered and tortured. It's as simple as that. But they don't like that. They don't like the people who are standing up for simple moral truths. And, of course, they want to try to tarnish it with politics. But this is, for me personally, This had nothing to do with politics. If you can't celebrate some boys trying to save the American flag from a group of anti-Semites who want to tear it down and desecrate it, that's not about Donald Trump. That's not about Kamala Harris. That's about America, and we should all appreciate that.
Let me play some audio from you, John Ondrasik, last night at Flagstock, an undisclosed location to honor the boys who protected the American flag.
Well, let me be the first to thank you. In this day and age, common acts of patriotism tend to be few and far between. And you set a great example for our country, particularly on our college campuses that have run amok with anti-Semitism and radicalism.
Did you get the sense that the kids who showed up had a good time last night?
They had a great time. They were singing. They had free beer. They were dancing. But they were also serious. I had a lot of serious conversations, about their experience and how so many told them not to come to the concert. They were intimidated by their peers to not even show up at the concert.
Hey, what is that?
And I also, was listening to their stories. And so, I think it was cathartic for all of us, but it was also fun for them. It was a rock show. They got a free concert. They had fireworks. They had flyovers. They had free food. They had a DJ. So for them, it was a blast. It was a party. So, and that's exactly what it should be. And credit to John Rich and John Noonan for pulling this off, because it's a big lift, and they deserve a lot of kudos for this.
Yeah, and John Noonan, who really was the chief fundraising organizer, put it up on the internet. I guess they have leftover funds, and they intend to make charitable contributions using those. And they said they're going to keep everybody posted in the weeks to come with how they use that money. But it sounds like it was a good event, and the students who showed up, in spite of the pressure on campus not to, had a good time, and that's thanks in no small part to people like John Ondrasik. John, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate you being here.